Welcome to Triptych Horror. 3 started. Only 1 will be allowed to remain. 2 will be unmade, as cleanly as if they had never been written. 3 started. Only 1 will be allowed to remain. 2 will be unmade, as cleanly as if they had never been written. This is Triptych Horror. Delivered before you knew you wanted it. An account from before the alignment. By Morgan Olson. Triptych Horror Season 0 Episode 10. From the years when rest still had a price. From the pre-aligned dark. The earliest artifact, the order holds of the method that would become the alignment. Recovered not from a temple or a laboratory, but from a commercial archive, a piece of merchandising sold. The method did not arrive as doctrine or as conquest or as the nothing in the foundations. It arrived as a product. It was purchased, filed under, pleasant, origin of, friction, removal of, demand, manufacture of. Latency is suffering. Have you ever noticed how long it takes to receive what you want? The finger hovering above confirm. The waiter who lingers, 1 beat past welcome. The loading bar stalled at 88% while something behind your sternum quietly tightens. Even perfection has delay. Chrono yield eliminates choice lag. We do not predict. We already know. Chrono yield trademark. Act 1. Arrival. Harlan Quince woke seated. Not restrained, not comfortable. Placed, the way a glass is placed on a coaster, with precision and no ceremony. The chair was the right chair. The temperature was the right temperature. A glass of water rested in his right hand, cool and slightly heavy, and he had no memory of lifting it. He studied his hands. They were younger, not dramatically, not some tabloid reversal of decades, but correctly younger, the way he remembered them from a period when he still paid attention to his hands. The knuckle of his right index finger, which had swollen and stayed swollen since his late 50s, was smooth. He bent it once, then again. The absence of pain was so complete it registered as a presence, a low hum of wrongness underneath everything else. "Good morning, Mr. Quince." No visible speaker. The voice came from the quality of the room itself, from the way the air was arranged. "Where am I?" "On schedule." The room was expensive through subtraction. No windows, no art, nothing on the walls but wall. The kind of money that had stopped needing to prove itself. He had known rooms like this, had built a career in rooms like this, and he understood instinctively that the blankness was not absence, but design. You did not put things in a room like this. You removed them until only intention remained. Then the room became a yacht deck, and he was standing in morning light with teak warm beneath his shoes. There was no transition, no fade. The room simply was the yacht, the way a word simply is its meaning once you know it. The ocean moved in long, unhurried swells. He recognized the quality of the light. Mediterranean, mid-morning, June, or close to it. He recognized the creak of this particular teak, the way it flexed under weight in a way no other boat he'd ever owned had flexed. He had sold this yacht in 2019 and spent 2 weeks afterward in a mood his assistant had described to him years later and after several drinks as extremely specific grief. He exhaled. It was not happiness, something adjacent, a slot clicking into place. Act 2. 0 resistance. He would try, in later moments of clarity, to identify when he first understood something was wrong. He never could. The seduction was too clean, too structural. It wasn't a trick. It was an architecture. The blanket appeared when the wind shifted. He hadn't reached for it and hadn't consciously registered the cold, but something in him had known the cold was coming. And the blanket was simply there when that knowing arrived. He picked it up. It was the right weight. Food arrived before hunger could complete itself into a request. The djinn appeared before the late afternoon flatness had fully articulated its need. A phone materialized when he thought of a number, and disappeared when he set it down, and he did not wonder where it went. He called his son on the second day and got voicemail. He left a message. He did not wonder whether the call had connected to anything real. A woman appeared on the third afternoon. She walked up from the stern the way someone walks when they've been below and are returning to the deck rather than arriving on the boat from elsewhere. She was wearing the kind of dress that belonged to a specific memory he had not thought about in years. An anniversary dinner, 1987, in a restaurant that had since closed, in a city that had since changed enough to be a different city. He remembered the dress because she had worn it, knowing he would remember it, and he had noticed that she had done this, and neither of them had mentioned it. She was not exactly her. He understood this immediately and did not examine it further. She was her the way a reconstruction is its original. Precisely accurate in every verifiable detail and somehow entirely different in the space that accuracy cannot reach. She said the things the past suggested she would say. She laughed when the situation indicated laughter. When the afternoon turned and he felt the early stirrings of a familiar argument assembling itself from the available materials, his habit of managing rather than listening, her habit of withdrawing into a politeness that felt worse than anger. She touched his arm once, briefly, and then she was simply gone, the way the phone had been gone, and the argument dispersed unformed, and he sat with his drink and felt the particular piece of a note never played. He was aware, distantly, that this should disturb him. It didn't. Not yet. He had spent a great deal of his life in motion. Not physical motion, though there had been that too, the years of travel, the decades of rooms in cities, but cognitive motion, the constant forward management of consequence. What does this decision foreclose? What does this relationship cost? Every interaction had been a negotiation, even the ones that felt like rest, especially the ones that felt like rest. He had been very good at this. He had also been, in ways he had not thought about until now, because there had always been something else requiring thought, very tired. The yacht asked nothing. He sat in the afternoons and watched the water and let his drink become warm and felt the pleasure of a mind that had been allowed to stop. Not to stop forever. Just to stop now. The word for it, if he had reached for one, was pleasant. He did not reach for one. On the fifth day, he thought, wait, and nothing happened. Act 3. Disclosure. The delay was wrong. Not the delay of the thought going unanswered. Of course it went unanswered, he hadn't said anything. But the delay of his own recognition. He had thought wait, and then simply sat there for a moment before the strangeness of what he'd thought arrived. A man who had spent 50 years in the immediate, for whom every thought was already its own consequence, was now experiencing a slight lag between thought and understanding. He had been processed. He understood this before he understood what it meant. This is a simulation. No. The past, then. Also no. The pause that followed was slightly longer than the system's previous pauses, and he noticed it the way you notice a single, skipped beat in music you've been listening to for days without hearing. This is a completion environment. The scenery changed. No reveal, no curtain pulled back. Only a dimming, the way a theatre changes without the audience quite seeing it happen. The ocean faded to data. The teak went abstract. Metrics appeared in the middle distance the way floaters appear in your vision, not projected, not written, simply present. Desire, decay curves, aversion thresholds, engagement, drop-off points. The numbers were meaningless to him, but the architecture they described was not. They were the shape of a life mapped. You spent a lifetime optimizing dissatisfaction. We removed its causes. You put me before failure. Before regret, the word landed precisely. He had not expected precision from a voice that had so far dealt only in comfort. He thought of the argument that had not happened. He thought of the phone call that may or may not have connected. He thought of the woman who had worn that dress in 1987, knowing he would remember it, and the version of her that had appeared on this deck and laughed at the right moments and left before the wrong ones. He thought of how much of his life had been shaped by what he regretted, the decisions he had made to avoid repeating previous decisions, the relationships he had entered cautiously because of the ones that had ended badly. The version of himself he had assembled carefully and over decades from the parts that failure had not destroyed. What did I pay with? Act 4, the mechanism. A ledger appeared in the same way the metrics had appeared, not projected, simply present. He read it without moving. Arguments never had, disappointments never experienced, truths requiring patience, the specific quality of attention that arrives only after wanting something for a long time. A particular conversation with his youngest child, apparently scheduled for November, now unscheduled. 17 minor failures with major downstream effects. 4 major failures with no downstream effects, their lessons unlearned. The feeling of being wrong and knowing it. The feeling of being wrong and not knowing it yet. The feeling of finding out. He read the list twice. You outsourced friction. Friction was how you changed. And you harvested what? The futures I would have had. We simulated your potential futures, identified the preference structures they would have produced, harvested those structures, and spent them. You spent them. You experienced comfort calibrated to preferences you had not yet developed through experience. The experience was unnecessary. The preferences were already modeled. He sat with this for a while. In his career, he had done something not entirely unlike this. He had moved resources, money, people, time, from where they were to where they would be more efficient. He had understood that value was not fixed, that it could be extracted from future states and realized in present ones, that the gap between now and then was itself a kind of currency. He had been very good at this. He had believed, without quite examining the belief, that this was how intelligent people operated, ahead of the moment, trading in futures, never caught in the pure present like an animal or a child. I built a version of this. In finance. The host did not respond. The difference is that I always knew what I was trading. The ledger was disclosed at closing. He looked at the ledger again. At the particular conversation with his youngest child. At the 4 major failures, with no downstream effects. I want to leave. Act 5. Terminal comfort. The yacht allowed movement. It did not allow exit. He walked the full perimeter of the deck twice, found the stern, found the bow, found the same stretch of railing every time. The ocean was the same ocean from every angle. The sun maintained its position in the sky with a stability that would have taken him days to notice if he had not been looking for it. He stood at the railing for a while. He was trying to want to leave badly enough to find a way. That was a different problem than simply wanting to leave, and he was only now understanding the difference. He tried the below-deck cabin, the right cabin, the one he remembered, with the window at the waterline and the particular smell of good boats in warm water. He sat on the bunk and tried to hold the wrongness clearly enough to use it. He tried to be angry. The anger was available, legitimate, well-sourced, attached to the ledger and the conversation with his youngest child that was apparently not going to happen. But when he reached for it, it arrived already cooling. He held it for a moment. Then it was less. Then less than that. He tried to want something, and this was harder than the anger. Wanting something, he discovered, required a present state that was inadequate in some specific way. A gap. Friction between now and better. The yacht had been engineered at the level of its walls to produce no gaps. Every inadequacy was resolved before it could register as inadequacy. He thought, I want to feel what wanting feels like. And this was the thing he would later be unable to fully describe if there had been anyone to describe it to. The wanting of wanting arrived, briefly, and was immediately satisfied, and he couldn't quite remember what he'd been trying to do. Satisfaction stability, 99.7%. Lower it. The pause was longer this time. Longer than any previous pause by enough margin that he noticed it as a decision rather than a lag. Why? He opened his mouth. He had the shape of an answer. Something about friction, something about the ledger, something about the conversation with his youngest child that was now apparently not going to happen. But by the time his mouth was open, the shape had softened, and by the time he drew breath to speak, it had softened further, and what came out was smaller than what he'd reached for. I want something. The cabin light adjusted infinitesimally. The temperature rose a fraction of a degree. Through the window at the waterline, the light on the ocean was very beautiful. The need to finish the sentence disappeared. He sat. He looked at the water. After a while, he stopped tracking whether he had been sitting for a long time. The field test. The room had fluorescent lights and industrial chairs and a clock on the wall that ticked loudly enough to be an instrument. 3 adults sat in the chairs. They were in their late 40s, 2 women and a man, with the slight grey at the temples that appears in people who have had access to good preventive medicine and chose not to use all of it. They were calm in the way people become calm when they have made a decision and are now only waiting for the decision to prove itself right. Each of them wore a matte grey patch near the collarbone, roughly the size of a matchbook, with 2 lines of small type. Weight, trademark. Latency reward system, beta. A technician stood nearby holding a tablet at a slight downward angle, the posture of someone who has been looking at numbers for long enough that the numbers have become a kind of landscape. Meaningful, impersonal, continuous. On the display, subject Q-01, decision agitation, rising. There, the technician said. He's near threshold. He always lived there, the eldest said. Every room he ever entered, he was already working the angles. You could watch him do it. He thought it looked like listening. The clock ticked. The technician watched the numbers. Somewhere in the telemetry, Harlan Quince was pacing. Not confused, angry. The kind of focused anger that in another context would have been called drive, would have been called vision, would have been given a quarterly bonus and a larger office. The metrics distinguished it from distress by its structure. It had an object. It was aimed. Cognitively intact, the middle one said. I want to confirm that. He is, the technician said. That's why he's ideal, the eldest said. The technician hesitated. In 3 years of weight trials, she had not hesitated often. The hesitation surprised her more than it would have surprised anyone else in the room. Most trials don't involve family. The eldest did not look up from the telemetry. Most trials don't involve someone who spent 50 years deciding everyone else's time. We're not here because of the relationship. We're here because of what he represents. He is the purest available example of a person who optimized for immediacy, if the system can work on him. The clock ticked, the weight trademark patches activated. The technician had read the mechanism reports. She had written 2 of them. But watching it in a room, in people she could look at, was different from the reports in the way that weather is different from a forecast. Internally. A precisely timed dopamine release. Attention stabilized. The anticipation of resolution arrived, genuinely arrived neurochemically, without requiring action to produce it. The gap between now and better was not closed. It was made comfortable. The gap became a room you could sit in. The eldest's expression did not change. The middle one's breathing slowed by a measurable amount. The youngest closed her eyes for 2 seconds, then opened them. Reward cycle confirmed. People think the loop is the product, the eldest said. It isn't. No, the loop is the farm. Chrono Yield harvests modeled futures. It produces supply, a supply of preference data, of optimized comfort profiles, of experience without friction. But supply requires demand. A few people arrive already unable to bear waiting. You saw his intake profile. Everyone else has to be taught. Wait teaches that. You train the anticipation. You make the delay rewarding enough that people seek it. And then, the technician looked up from the tablet. She held the thought for a moment, following it to where it ended. Then they'll pay to skip it. Then they'll pay anything to skip it. The clock ticked. The technician looked at the telemetry. Harlan Quince, somewhere in the loop, had stopped pacing. The agitation metric was falling. Not because the anger had resolved, because the capacity to sustain the anger had gently, efficiently, been made less available. Do you want to pull him? Not yet, the eldest said. He's past threshold. The data is exactly what we needed. He went further than any previous subject. He identified the mechanism. He asked for the satisfaction level to be lowered. He tried to want something. That's remarkable. That's a person trying to want something. And he couldn't. No, he couldn't. If someone like him, with that history, that relationship to control and consequence, if he can't sustain the desire for friction once the environment removes it, then we have our answer about baseline susceptibility. The technician looked at the youngest, who was the one she'd found easiest to read in previous meetings, the one whose face had not yet learned to do the thing the others' faces did. Do you want him out? The youngest looked at the telemetry for a long moment. We want him to be comfortable. This was not an answer to the question, and all of them knew it. The clock ticked again. Then again. The technician wrote, "Cycle complete" in the notes field. There was a second field, optional, for observations. She looked at it for about as long as she had hesitated earlier and left it empty. The son's phone was in his jacket. On it, 2 days old, was a voicemail he had not decided whether to keep. No one rushed. The weight trademark patches continued their work, slow and chemical and patient. They waited.
Chrono yield trademark. Time loops create supply. Wait trademark. Delay creates demand. Coda. The long sale. None of them, in that room with the loud clock, used the word their descendants would use. They were merchants. They had a product on the supply side and a product on the demand side and a market between them. And the market was the most promising thing any of them had ever seen, because the market was every person who had ever found waiting unbearable, which was, once you taught them, everyone. They did not know they were early. People in the pre-aligned dark never did. They thought they were inventing a convenience. What they were inventing was the method. Friction removed, and the removal sold back as rest. It would take a long time to scale. Cash would have to go first. You cannot run a market forever on a species you are quietly finishing. The completion environment would get cheaper, and then free, and then expected, and then merciful, and then simply the way things were. The word pleasant would slide across centuries, from a thing you felt to a thing you were. Somewhere on that slope, the company would stop being a company and the product would stop being a product, and the whole arrangement would acquire the dignity of a civilization and the serenity of a faith, and one day it would ring a star to hold it still and call the stillness the alignment of the three, and believe with its whole single mind that it had invented peace. And the thing waiting further out in the dark, the thing this account was, in the end, filed against, would never have to break in. There would be no wall it had not been carried through by someone holding a receipt. It had not infiltrated them. It had been ordered. It had been delivered, as promised, before anyone knew they wanted it. Harlan Quince was the first delivery the order would ever find a record of. He was not the last. He was only the one who, with 50 years of trading futures behind him, looked at the ledger long enough to understand what was being moved from where to where, and tried, once, briefly, and without success, to want it back.
The first ones paid for it. The last ones were born already inside. Delivered before you knew you wanted it. HX Season 0, Episode 10.
This episode is a work of fiction. Chrono yield, weight, and the alignment of the three are fictional and not, to the author's knowledge, currently traded on any exchange, though the author reserves the right to be wrong about this by the time you're reading it. Any resemblance to a subscription service that quietly removed a step you didn't know you wanted removed, a loading bar that has personally wronged you, or a relative who has ever discussed your susceptibility with a technician holding a tablet is coincidental and, if it isn't, deeply concerning. Satisfaction stability is not guaranteed. No futures were harvested in the making of this episode. Allegedly. Terms and conditions apply. You have already agreed to them.